Hello and welcome to the Extraordinarium Show. You're listening to medium and exorcist Ralph Keaton. The following podcast is taken from the Exorcist Diaries. Today, the podcast, I'd like to look at the most common types of ghosts. Those that haunt areas within your property, those that get around us, those type of energies that are more common than others. And it's that type that kind of basically will make you kind of more aware than anything else. Because, yes, we've talked about what signs are, what to look for, what there is. But then we've got to look at what are they? What is going on? So we need to look at the types. And I'm just going to give you kind of like 4 little categories. One is the visual stimulus ghost, which is that quick fleeting thing. The next one is that type of ghost that will make a sound. The next one is the active ghost that actually does things. And then the last one is what I call interactive. That is, it knows you're there and it'll react. So kind of like 4 little categories. And I thought we'd start by looking at those visual ghosts. You know, the type that peripheral vision where you think you've seen something and you flick your head and you go, oh. And these are what I call early hauntings, early beginnings. Even down to looking at psychics and one or two others. There's that early thing that makes you more aware, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
I think with them, and I've got to be honest, when I talk to people, Steve, I get more people talking to me about what they've seen at that peripheral vision, or what they've seen as like what I call a wispy ghost. That thing they look up and they go, was that there or was that not there? The shadow, that kind of thing. And I get a lot of people that more than anything else. And I want to just explain it a bit more, why, why it's going on. Yeah. Because I don't know how you've done this, but I've always sort of said that if a ghost is going to introduce itself to you, they generally have given you a little warning first.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You like we spoke about in previous shows, you'd get them classic little taps, little knocks, certain things on certain days, all that kind of stuff. But I suppose then if you're not recognising that, and if it's a human spirit and that need for it to communicate or kind of get your attention somewhere, then maybe the next move is for it to just appear.
Well, I liken it to whenever you're in a car and you're driving down a road, if there's an accident on the other side of the road, what most people do is slow down and have a look. Now, if you're, as the person that's receiving a ghost, if you're sitting there going, what the hell's that? That's an accident. You've not really meant to see that thing. But what all the others do is they slow down and they go, oh, hang on a minute. And that's when you start seeing this peripheral.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, if you're having that kind of thing, you blank it out, you get on with what you're doing. But occasionally, and I've done this because I've had a car accident myself, I look across the road and you go, what's that one? Big car. So suddenly you're looking at, what's that big ghost? What is that? And that's when it goes, I've seen you, you've seen me.
Yeah.
I find most of them are non-intrusive, so they're not going to try and talk to you. They just literally are around you. And most ghosts in a property, most people that have them, they're not really bothering you. They're not really there. Some of them live there. Some of them wander past you there. Some of them are walking through. I know of one house, in a house in northeast of England, that a monk walks through the property.
Yeah.
It doesn't care that anybody's living there. It's on its path. It's coming down from the priory and off where. So and a lot of people have said when they've either walked the path which is in front of the house or actually sitting in the house, they've said no, any times they've seen this thing, it's come through the house or it's walked past the house,
Yeah.
They've got used to it. They don't bother with it. It still makes great entertainment as far as story goes, but they never know when it's coming.
Yeah. I think they're more like your classic, white lady, in a castle. There's all these kind of like classic ghosts that have been seen time and time again. Battlefields, there may be soldiers that you see, or there's all these kind of ghosts, and I think they're ones that most people, if they are going to see one, will see that kind of thing. It tends to be reported that I think when and out of your own home, when you catch something corner of your eyes, maybe you're visiting somewhere, or you go to these old houses, estates, all these kind of things. They've all got histories. They've all got things wrapped up in them. The likelihood is that you probably see a ghost and don't even realise, because majority of the time they look as solid as we are now.
Yes. Yeah, there's a very famous case I can talk about, which is a TV program. It is the program. It was being filmed, and the house they were using. One of the actors came out and went, "Look, I'm not being funny, but that waiter that's in there, he needs to be moved before we go in. He keeps freaking me out." And of course, the whole film crew and everybody went, "What waiter?" And you could see his face go white. It was like, oh my God, because I was being told about it when it had all happened. And so you look and you think, they're just doing their job. But obviously, he'd caught it on the vision, and then once you recognise something, it becomes easier and clearer to see.
Yeah.
And again, not non-intrusive, wasn't there to cause any hassle, but it stopped filming for a while at least, But you're right, they're your classics. You go into an haunted castle, you go into a manor, you're going to see what you typically think you're going to see. There is an argument, isn't there? And I forgot what psychologist it was, but basically, if you're going in with a mindset of thinking I'm going to see, I don't know, a knight in shining armour, you're kind of arguing, well, what you think you're seeing is because you're thinking it already.
Yeah.
But my argument
I get
is
that. Yeah.
Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah.
My argument is, I can understand that, but what happens if what happens if you really did see it? It's kind of
So I think sometimes as well is there'll be something that kind of sticks in your mind, some kind of, I don't know, some detail or something that you've seen that when you wouldn't possibly know, maybe a particular colour or a tartan or something, or something, or a particular, they would wear some or walk a certain way or do certain things.
yeah.
You wouldn't know them little details, but a lot will report little details more than event itself, So going with a preconceived idea, I get that, if you're going on a ghost hunt to a spooky castle and it's going to be pitch black, then everything's going to be hidden, and you are going to see things that aren't there, aren't you? They are going to be things. But there's a difference.
Yeah, but I've got to tell you about. I run the ghost walks up in Alnwick. We're Alnwick Castle and all around the ground. I run them on the outside into the town, and I can remember one point I was walking a little group, and we go from one ghost to another. But I thought there was nothing between us and this car park, so I walk into this car park, and this woman ran up to me, almost in tears, and she went, "You're the ghosty man." And I went, well, yeah, I do the ghost walks. And she goes, "Oh my God," she says, "we've just seen a big black horse."
Right.
And I looked at her and I went, "Who has?" And she went, "Well, my daughter saw it first." She says, "And then I saw it. And it's by this big tree, where all the buses park." And I sort of looked at her and I says, "Well, I don't honestly know, because I like to do a little bit of research as well." And literally, we were all stood there. There must have been about 12 of us stood there. And the next minute, we hear the braying of a horse. It was like, oh my God. And then the little girl
Confirmation.
said... Yeah, it was, yeah. But I looked at the little girl and I said, "What did you see?" And she went, "I saw this horse, but it only had one eye, like one eye." So I made some inquiries the next morning. And I went around there's a couple of historians in there, and I was talking to them. And apparently there was actually a black stallion that had its eye taken out that would have roamed the field area around there.
Yeah.
Now, we're not saying that it's definitely that one, but how remarkable is that none of us knew about it, and there was this thing.
That's the thing, is these little details, isn't it? I went to an airfield museum, and this were at night. They'd had some trouble. Can we come and have a look at it? So we went and had a look. And from outside, where workshops were originally, this building what we had all work, that had worked on planes and stuff, for war and all that. I noticed there were a really dark shadow, huge thing that were going along top of these windows, but it didn't kind of go across window. It went in the building through the window and then sort of came back out again at the other end. This really big, massive black shadow. And I'm thinking, wow, this is weird. You know, maybe I'll go and have a look what he's been in there for. So I went in. And as I opened the door to a big kind of hangar room, there were a part of a plane that were just a model thing, you know, for museum, this part of this Second World War plane. And as I walked in, there were a guy in overalls working on it, on plane. He was, you know, unstable working on this plane. And as I opened that door, he turned and looked at me. I looked at him, and then he disappeared.
Oh.
But he was as solid as I was, you know, as
Aye.
solid as I was. And there were a guy who were with me, who were at back of me, and he said, "Did you just see that man disappear?" That's all. That were his words. And he was like, "Yep." But as solid as normal. Yeah. But I remember his hair were gelled back, brill creamed back, really shiny back. And the overalls he had on were, they'd got some kind of badge on them. On it looked almost like we had a leg one near his waist. And apparently that crew that worked on that thing, that's where they put their badge.
Ah, right.
Which I was thinking, well, why weren't you here? You know, why weren't badge on his chest? You know, it would be his lapel sort of thing. But it weren't, it was further. And it turned out that particular, but that crew, that there were a guy that it was some stray bombing or whatever. He were working in this particular area, bomb it, he got killed and wiped out. And they said that it was probably him. He was guy. And then when they described jet black hair, you know, it was all gel back neat. And I could see him working away on that. Really clear, plain solid. And then just that, almost like a haze. And they've gone, you know.
Yeah, and that's the thing about a visual ghost. I mean, I know we're talking very lightly on types of visual ghosts, but a visual ghost is literally there. It embeds itself into you and makes itself known. And I think that is it's the ones that you're least expecting. I think are the shocking ones, you know. But they're non-interactive.
See, that weren't shocking because I'm thinking to be saying,
yeah.
After, my initial thoughts were, oh, it's one at museum staff or something. I didn't think,
yes,
you know, but it can't have been, can it? Because he disappeared. You know, that kind of logic. But you do it, that the initial thoughts were, I weren't scared at all, you know, walking in a room and there's somebody there instantly saying that's a ghost, because I was looking at a guy that was as solid as I was.
Yes.
For a few seconds. And then he weren't, you know.
You see, that's the strange thing for me, Steve, because I grew up with the ability to be able to see these things. I grew up with it. So as I was younger, I used to see loads. I used to see, like, I had classrooms full, etc. As I've grown older, I've realised my eyesight can be tricked. I've realised that a shape, things can be tricked. But you can imagine, I went to a museum, and that's up in the north of England as well. I went to this museum, and I'm stood talking to... I'm sure Keith won't mind me mentioning his name, but I'm talking to Keith and I'm chatting away to him, and stood next to him was a guy that looked identical to him. And Keith spotted me because Keith's going, "What are you doing?" Now, this image kind of, what I want to say basically is this image appeared to me slowly. So it's like it came out the darkness and then suddenly got brighter and brighter and brighter. And then I was looking at Keith's double.
Yeah.
So what I did with my mind was I was like, now then, hang on a minute. Now, the guy wasn't talking to me because normally I can hear, but this guy didn't talk. So I'm like looking at Keith and I'm looking to the right and I'm looking at Keith and I'm looking to the right again. And so I'm thinking to myself, is it a mirror? Is it? And I put my hand out and Keith's going, "What's the matter?" And I went, "You're not going to believe this." And he went, "What?" I went, "This guy's your double." And we did a little bit more talking about it. And then it turns out that Keith had lost his brother who looked like him. Is his double?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because I've known Keith for a while, and I'm like, "What?" And he went, "Yeah, well, that's my brother." Since then, there's been no end of different people going in, and they're saying the same thing. One group went in, and they're saying Keith was stood with him and he walked away. And the next minute, this group's doing a few bits and bobs in the museum. They're doing a bit of work. And they turn around to talk to Keith. This guy walks out, and then Keith walks in, and they go, "Did you fetch us that thing?" And Keith went, "What thing?" And they went, "Well, we just talked to you a minute ago." And he went, "Can't have done. I was over in the other building." So even other people are seeing him. So can you see it's kind of like... and they're unaware of the fact of what I saw, because it's fascinating, because a lot of people ask, again, they're fascinated by what am I seeing, what am I doing. Now, when it comes to the visual side of things, I'm very, very aware of it. Now, there's a lot of times, and you know this, I will stand up sometimes, I'll have my eyes shut, because I don't want tricking, I don't want to catch it, I like to feel, hear, but when I do open my eyes and I do see it, I cannot take my eyes off them, because I am fascinated. I'm also a bit shocked and scared at the same time, but I'm fascinated. And in a lot of cases, when I know it's a visual ghost, because something that's just showing itself to me, it doesn't worry me too much. I tend to look at it and go, okay, what's it doing it for? It might show an action, it might mouth something, it might even speak to me, but it's giving me that thing. And these are the more common ways I deal, and the more common that other people get. So I have to say that this thing of, at times, people become psychic. They have that ability to just turn on, turn off things. Whether they hold on to it, because the difference is, when I look at something and it transfixes me, I focus. I shut everything else off, and then I'm just focused on it, And I know they're not intrusive. I know they're there to show me, and I know they're to do it. And it's amazing. I had doing a stand-up show not long ago, and I was talking to this woman, and I said to her, "Look, I've got a guy standing next to me." And she went, "Yeah." And I goes, "You ever seen Bigfoot?" And she went, "Yeah." And I goes, "Well, this guy looks like Bigfoot. He's hairy all over him." And I said, and everybody started laughing, and she went, "Yeah, that actually is my brother. He was he took his..." And I went, "You're joking?" She goes, "No, he only died a week ago." And I went, "Oh no." So, and I'm talking to her about, and she says, funny thing is, he was into all that. He was into Bigfoot, but he showed himself. You know what I mean? So
yeah. What
I'm about to say is, there's a twist to this, because sometimes it's not actually the thing that it wants to show you. It can sometimes represent something. It's a lot of... Now, we've talked about intelligent ghosts before. I don't know if we've done it on this program or not, but we talk about intelligent stuff. But they know you're looking. They know you're seeing it. So rather than saying, "I'm here," they'll present what they want you to see, so you can have that as a trigger to something else. So when we talk about some of these, what I call the quick flashy images, sometimes, people say to me, "I saw this," or "I saw that." I listen and I go, what they're doing there is they're showing what they want you to see, not what they are. And that's where we get the con, isn't it? Sometimes we get this con of, it's maybe presenting itself really nice to you, but it has immoral intent, so it's kind of, so it can kind of go that way, but it's there to do this, and it's the visual side of it, I think, is one of the quickest, because it's something we do 95% of the day. We rely on that visual ethics, and my brain says to everybody, but when you're in the dark, your eyes don't work the same. It's looking for less detail in actual fact, and you see less detail anyway. And so therefore you've got to be careful, but it's when it presents itself. So the wispy white ghost, the wispy white ghosts literally are there because they know white against black lifts out more. So they're giving you that, and that tells me again something else is going on, So they're for me, they're like they're making you notice.
Yeah.
And in your own home they're doing it.
Well, that's one of the big differences against an intelligent haunting and an haunting that's just a repeated thing. That repeated thing, they're not interested that you're there. They're not probably aware. It's just a set thing that's just kind of repeating and repeating. Other thing is, you might get where, like you say, you might get visited by, or something goes across the corner of your eye, across that doorway or whatever in corner, or likelihood there is it's trying to get your attention.
Mm-hmm.
And then you move on to something that's intelligent, will design the reaction. It'll, I mean, like we said, we hauntings at any stage of hauntings is observe its action, not the reaction, as in not reacting to what you're doing. You know, you're getting involved if it's reacting, aren't you? But observe its action by all means, but not its reaction is my advice. we any kind of haunting, you know, not to really get into it that much. But when you're looking at what kind of things there are, like you'll get your solid forms. We get calls off of people on cases and that, and sometimes we aren't sounding kind of patronising or whatever. We've heard it all before, kind of thing. You get people whose imaginations are running too wild with it, so they'll start telling you about ghosts of what they've imagined, and it usually comes from a sound or whatever. Then they've seen this corner of the eye thing, and that turns into some horrific haunting that their imagination has run with, and really that hasn't happened. And then you get your other one where they appear and they're plain as day. It can be terrifying or it can't be, either way.
The way I look at it is this, you see. So if you get the peripheral vision, you focus on it, imagine it this way. Imagine walking down the street and at a distance you see somebody and you wave.
Yeah.
Initially they won't see you straight away, but as soon as they see you, they go, oh. Now, peripheral vision, you see it. So it's just like you waving. That person then in life will go, oh, and then may wander over to you. So all that peripheral vision is about is saying, hello, come here.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're going to come straight in front of you, because sometimes they'll always stay at the side of you. Because our eyes have a hard time thinking that's a ghost. So when you look at it, your eyes don't want to see it, you don't want to see it, so you do blank it. So you do try to focus on something else. And I've often found with them, they've in a lot of cases, if it's not interacting with you, which is just basically, and we'll talk about stone tape theory in a minute, if it's just coming out and it's just reacting to you, that's all you're ever going to get. But the interesting ones are the ones that come forward and then interact with you, and we'll talk about them in the next part. But it's that thing of, it's caught your eye. They're kind of checking you out. They're kind of like interacting with you. Now, and I've said this before, but we're the trigger, so we've made that happen. We're looking at it, and it's then tuned into you like a radio station. It tunes into you and goes, right, here I come.
Yeah.
So what that'll lead us on to, Steve, is that side of things where we talk about this stone tape theory, this recording that comes out. Now, my big thing when I'm talking to anybody about ghosts is, ghost is a great overall title. Spirit, overall title. What I deal with is an energy force. I feel the energy of it. Now, the easiest way to explain this is, because the Earth's running and revolving and twisting, it's vibrating all the time. So we're always getting vibrations. Although, as a human being, in 99% of cases, you don't feel it because you've got used to it.
Yeah.
But much like when anybody gives you one of those machines that vibrates on you to relieve muscle tension and things like that, that vibration is the way it's captured. Now, that object that you've got, that handgun that's giving you the vibration, is only there. When you turn it on, that's what comes out. Stone tape theory, to me, is the same thing. You've released the energy, so it's captured in an area. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's a lot of science behind it, isn't there? There's a lot of science behind, so that it's in certain stone. Quartz is a holder of information, into silicon, all them kind of things. The computers are made out of basic minerals, aren't they? You know, they all do different jobs. So I can see it being a valid theory that activated with certain temperatures, energies, thought, and coming off of you, times, all this kind of stuff can trigger something where it's a repeating thing. And there's a famous one up in Scotland where it's a clan of soldiers that go up a glen that have been actually photographed numerous of times or different years. It's not like it's all been done in the same year or whatever on a certain date. But in fact, that'd be a great one to probably go to and try and get something for that, But that's a classic thing of something just repeating itself. It's not interacting. part of whatever it's doing, you know, and it's not going to change. That's not going to change. But then, stone tape, I mean, it's a difficult one to look at because it's kind of always, it's just that white lady that walks across there, or it's just that nun that walks down that path, or it's this priest that does. They tend to be pushed apart as like it's not juicy enough. As a topic
totally
on
agree
its
with
own, you know, which it really is, because at the end of the day, it's same thing. You're experiencing something that's beyond natural.
Yes.
You know, no matter what, at what level or whatever, it's still beyond natural. It's still something that you're not going to go and see that every day. Some people will never see it in a lifetime, you know. Some people will see more than the fair share, you know. But I find it's just as interesting as on all levels of ghosts, on however you categorize them and put them into things, that they're all interesting subjects on their own, and they shouldn't be kind of, you know, if you're looking into these subjects, then look into them. Don't just skirt around edges, you know, and think, oh, well, they just repeat the sentence, that's that. Not necessarily that. Maybe there's a reason why it repeats itself. You know, especially your castles and your tower ones, because there's always a maiden that's fell from castle suicide or whatever over a night that never returned and all this. But there's something in there, isn't there, you know?
Yeah, if you bring, I mean, let me give you a home scenario where we've got this stone tape theory. Where imagine this thing. I get no end of people come to me at my shows and they say to me, "I felt like something was sitting at the end of my bed."
Yeah.
Or they've woke up and felt like somebody was hovering over them, and I go, "Yeah, because as a child and as a parent, early on when you've got a child, the first thing you're doing is rushing in." Is it still there? Is it still breathing? Yeah. Is it still alive? And some people go in and go, I can't believe I made that. I can't. You know, it's like that adoration. You know,
we've all looked into a cot and given it a little check, haven't we?
Yeah, or touched it even. You know, like, is it still warm? Is it? You know, or you're watching intently to see if it's breathing. You know, I've done that with my father. My father went to sleep one night and he was sleeping, and I looked at him and he wasn't very well. And I remember looking at him and going right up close to him just to see if I could see his chest going, because he was very shallow breathing. And you know, and it's like, and so what if you just take that apart? That was a very emotional scenario. So when you're at home and this stone tape theory is coming in, it's the energy that you've got, whilst it's family or familiar, it's repeating something that's gone on before. And so when you've got that going on, you're right. It's not a case of just ignoring it and going, well, it's a white ghost. It doesn't matter. And you're right. The monk one I talked about a minute ago, it's not ignored because you go, why? What for? Because I think the unfortunate thing is, and I'm thankful I've not done this, but I think the unfortunate thing is when you go looking for ghosts or you're looking at energy in that, what you're wanting, or what a lot of people want, is it to become more active, more. You want it to respond to you. You want it to. And you got up and up and up. And what you've not done is you've not looked at it properly and gone, but why did that thing appear in the first place? Or when I shouted out to it and it appeared, they want to move on, and it's like, no. Repeat it and then try and interact with it. Try and get it back, but be patient.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it just takes time. And you're right. It's just a shame that we do, in a lot of cases. I see a lot of TV programs, one or two others, just bypass it. And I'm like, no, hang on. Because what you can find is, whilst it's repeating and it's giving you that interaction, something else is going on.
Yeah.
There's that extra bit. Think about it. A light bulb, when you turn a light bulb on, it's not just the light bulb coming on. There's a whole lot of electricity getting there. There's the switch you've just done, your interaction. So when it's appearing and when it's coming to you, you've got to have it giving you more. You know, there's... I've just got down here a little note to say to myself that once they're triggered, they usually will repeat. And I'm interested in the ones that are not one-off.
Yeah.
Because like anything in life, we can meet some very great people once. And that's it. We do it, don't we? When you meet somebody, you think, well, they made a really big impression on me, but you never met them again. But it's the ones that come back because it's like, well, okay, if that's coming back on a regular basis, and they're the ones I tend to look at more, because then you're going, why? What for? Can we get it to come back? I've got the time, patience to get on and do it. And I think they're the ones that give you more goodness. Now, I want to talk about this energy transference system, because when you're there, you're full of energy. The building around you is full of energy, and much like when you touch an object and you get that static electricity, whilst science can explain it, nevertheless, it's an energy form that's come from you to that object. You're doing the same thing on a different level, and that energy transference with the right type of people can create all sorts of things. So it leads me on to saying, not everybody can do it, and some people that can do it aren't aware that they're doing it.
No, absolutely. You do hear a lot though, Ralph, don't you, that especially people with hauntings and that, if they're experiencing more interaction with a spirit, you'll say that they'll say, I'm really headachy, or I'm really tired, or I feel really drained, or so that's when he's talking about that energy transfer and stuff. It's some energy's being used as well.
But I want to just kind of stop the program there for a minute, because Steve, you've hit what we're going to do next. We've been talking about common ghosts in a building, in an area, and it's attached to that. The next podcast we're doing, is about attachments to humans. I want to thank you, Steve. It's been great again.
Fabulous, as usual.
I think that if there's anybody out there and they want to know more, get on YouTube. We are on YouTube. Get on. We're on Patreon now as well, so let's get looking at Patreon. Email me if you've got any information that you want to do, and it's the team at ralphkeaton.co.uk. We are expanding the big Extraordinarium shop, because we're putting in more information, so you can buy books, you can buy various things that we're putting together. We're looking at protective things as well, aren't we, Steve?
Yes, absolutely. More a lot of self-help stuff where you can, we can guide you through. Have a look at a book or whatever, little short books, guide you through, and you can deal with it yourself. That's main achievement. Is you deal with it yourself. Fantastic. You'll never have another problem again.
Yeah.
But sometimes you might have to get us in. But hey, that's how it goes, isn't it?
You might have to talk to us, yeah. Talk to two crazy people, yeah. That's it. Yeah. Right, so what I'm going to draw it there. Thank you everybody for listening. We hope to see you on our next podcast. We are doing these on a regular basis now. We are getting some fantastic hits. There are I'm getting some really good questions coming through. So I want to say to everybody, if you can share us out, let everybody know about it. Let's start talking. Let's start doing stuff, and let's start putting this together. So thank you, Steve. Thank you, listeners. Thank you for listening to The Exorcist Diaries with Steve Hemingway and myself, Ralph Keaton. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive. And if you're keen to hear more on the subject of hauntings, join us next time and we'll take a look at the subject in more depth of how it affects you. In the meantime, check out our website at extraordinarium.co.uk, or my website ralphkeaton.co.uk for all our links to shows, videos, resources and more.